Good morning, friends. Welcome from wherever you are. Welcome however you are. Welcoming yourself here into the space as you welcome each other. As always, it's lovely to receive your messages and feel your presence. Feel free as you settle into whatever posture you're choosing to begin with to feel free to also stretch a little. You can reach your arms up and help your breathing wake up a little bit. Twisting your body. Yawning or moving the body so that the diaphragm can begin to be released a little. On the first day, we rub the palms together and help the body become quieter and more inward. So any of these techniques, massaging the face, the jaw, the shoulders, any of these techniques that help you to arrive. Arriving and welcoming yourself here. And then as you begin to settle into your own space, really feeling this Sangha, feeling each other all around the world, also through space and time. Some people joining another time via the recording and yet still joining this same space that we create together, beyond space and beyond time. So feeling each and every one of us as we arrive, and how the energy and the intention and the presence that each and every one of us brings somehow mysteriously informs and supports this space that we create. And so we were continuing in our exploration of meeting challenging emotions. And on this last day of the week, we'll be exploring meeting fear with love. Another completely natural human response to life. As with all of these emotions, it's not that we are attempting to get rid of them. We're relaxing any ideas we might have of wanting to be free of these emotions. And when we'll be free of them, we'll be enlightened, liberated. Remembering instead that what we're cultivating is a loving relationship towards these emotions, which in turn cultivates a deepening of love within ourselves. So that these emotions, and in fact everything, every experience becomes a way that love expands through our willingness, through our capacity to meet whatever arises with love. So it's a very liberating perspective, in fact. It's a very empowering perspective. We're no longer victims to life's random and often brutal circumstances, deciding whether or not we will have an open or a closed heart. It's empowering because the power is within us, and through our growing capacity, through our growing wisdom of what is needed to support this capacity, through our practice, the power is within us to meet this moment as it is with love. So fear arises in response to threat. But the interesting thing about fear is that it arises in response to a projected future moment of threat, a projected future moment of pain, and often very appropriately. So if there's a car speeding towards us, we're afraid of the projected future moment when that car might hit us. So when I say projection, it doesn't imply that it's a creation. Fear is a necessary evolutionary response for survival. The challenge becomes when we begin to live inside those projections, when we begin to inhabit the response that's meant to be very short-lived. It's the adrenalized response that I mentioned yesterday, like the shock response that is here to ensure our survival by actually taking our attention out of our body and energizing the limbs to ensure that we don't feel too much and that we are ready to either run away or fight or freeze for our safety. In Chinese medicine, it's connected to the kidneys, and the adrenals sit just above the kidneys. And when we're in a harmonious relationship with it, fear, through meeting it with the sense of belonging, the connectivity, the gentleness, even the gratitude that arises when love meets fear. The kidneys actually help us come into deeper connection with the whole of life. We enter a more profound experience of belonging to the web of all things. And so when fear is held in a balanced, harmonious relationship within us, it can actually point us towards a deeper experience of peace. But when we remain in this inhabiting an ongoing contracted state of fear, either by suppressing it or embellishing it, we diminish our capacity to feel fully, to be fully embodied, and therefore diminish our capacity to respond with wisdom, compassion, and delight to life. We diminish our capacity to be fully alive. We live, instead of living with a felt sense of being in profound connection with all things, we live with this imagined sense of existing in separation. Whenever we whenever we imagine that we exist in separation, because it's not a truth, whenever we imagine that, there's immediately something to acquire, something to defend, or this desire to distract. The demanding, defending, and distracting, the very foundational movements of reactivity, we could say all arise out of fear. We'd even go as far as saying that every distorted or imbalanced relationship to all other emotions have behind them some element of fear. We're afraid that this moment is too much for us to bear. We're afraid that this emotion is too overwhelming for us to turn towards with love. we're afraid fundamentally that who I am is not okay, that this experience of being human is not okay, that this universe is fundamentally not safe. And so, of course, what I'm describing here is a whole spectrum of fear, from the very immediate and appropriate response to threat to something that becomes chronic and unconscious and existential. So to meet that chronic level, the existential level of threat, of fear, the one that seems to permeate our body, the one that keeps us in a state of contraction and vigilance, it can be helpful, a little like with anger, to move the body. You might have noticed, or you might have seen it in children or animals, that a healthy response after fear is meant to be a short-lived experience, remember. And what happens when we don't embellish or suppress fear through the mind and through the body is that the body will quite naturally shake. Will shake through the whole body involuntarily when we don't prevent that, to release the adrenaline, to release the contractions in the muscles that have readied us for fighting or freezing or running away. So it can be helpful to, anyway, if we know that fear is very present for us, to move the body, to shake. It could be something that you might like to do now, even to shake through the body, to use the voice, to shake through the voice, to shake through the arms, the legs, the hands, the feet, the organs, the belly. And as we come to a more gracious and balanced relationship with fear, as well as shaking, in order to allow and invite our attention to come back into the body, since fear is a state that asks our attention to come into the head, to leave the body because we don't want to feel too many other emotions. In order to invite the intention back into the body, it's very helpful to spend some time sensing our connectedness. So we'll do that together in a moment when we come to practice. To spend some time remembering all the ways that this body is supported, this heart is supported, this mind is supported. And then when we come to meet fear, we meet it with such gentleness. And so that the whole flavor of being present is one of connectedness and gentleness. And then we come to know fear in the body from a place that is already grounded and connected, and from an attitude that's profoundly soft and gentle. And the message that we begin to offer fear when it arises here in the body is that you belong here. You're so welcome. It's okay to feel this way. So once again, we become the parent, embracing the fearful child within us, rather than inhabiting fear and viewing the world through fear's eyes. So friends, if you haven't already found a posture that feels appropriate for you this morning, or this afternoon or evening, if you're in another timeline or joining from a recording, then find and feel into whether standing or being seated or lying down would feels most supportive for you. Whether movement, stretching or shaking or coming to stillness feels most supportive for you. As we begin our meditation together this morning, even if you're relatively still in your posture, you might like to still make some little micro movements to help you feel the body, to help you release places of habitual tension, to free up the breathing. Can help as well to give your body a gentle shake or wiggle, to feel the ground. To feel the truth of how the ground holds us, whatever is going on, however it is we're feeling. The solidity of the ground that's not just a word or even an object separate from us. The ground really is this great wide lap of Mother Earth, alive, rising up to meet us the more we drop our weight into her. Feeling the sense of the support of your own breathing. Again, always here for as long as you're alive. The support of your own breathing, just breathing you, breathing life with you. Feeling the support of each other and the support of this practice as we hold each other in presence with love in our practice. If you have a connection to unseen realms, to spirit, ancestors, or deity, invite forward the support of the presence and love and guidance from these unseen realms. And if you begin to feel a sense of it being safe to be here in this body, then really invite your attention to drop into the body. And if there's a sense of not feeling safe to be here in the body, then turn towards that feeling of unsafety and see if you can ask it what it needs from you. Perhaps the eyes prefer to be open. Perhaps hands want to rest somewhere in the body in support. Perhaps there are other emotions that are more heightened, which want to be attended to first. If you're able to feel your body, feel your breathing in your body. Inviting your breathing, as always, to anchor your attention here in the breathing body, in the sensations, in the movement. Feeling what you're able to relax and release as you unhook again and again from wherever your attention has wandered. And returning with gentleness to the sensations of breathing in the body. Releasing your jaw. So there's an increasing sense of creating space inside your body for the breathing and for whatever else is here for you. feeling the breathing body with gentleness. Unhooking whenever our attention wanders off and we notice it, and celebrating that moment of noticing. Our practice is one of returning. Our practice is one of remembering to return. And so in the moment of remembering, we relax. We breathe and we come home to gentleness. And if your attention is beginning to feel a little more present in the body, notice what it is that you're feeling, remembering that all emotions arise also as sensations in the body. If fear is here, and sometimes just in talking about an emotion, it comes more to the forefront. Be curious about its particular frequency, its flavor, its energy. Where is there contraction? Turn towards those places with so much gentleness. Soften around and breathe into a place of contraction. Resting beside this dancing energy of fear. As you give it space and permission to simply be here in the body. Held with gentleness. If the presence of fear has agitated the mind and you notice your attention has wandered into thought, unhook, soften and relax. Return to the breathing. It's okay to feel this way, here in the body. All emotions held here in the body with love move through us like a river, finding their way back to the ocean of love. Offering the message to the cells of your body that you belong here. You belong here. Breathing into and with that deeper sense of belonging. Even if it's not felt, breathing into the feeling of not belonging with the gentleness that whispers you belong here too. Staying with our attention in the body with the breathing. Immediate, alive and present. as we welcome more and more of these sensations of being here into this gentle field of belonging. Breathing into the spaces that feel contracted or collapsed with so much gentleness. Breathing into and around and through the sensations of fear or any other emotion that's here for you right now, with the permission to be here, with curiosity, with care, with kindness and gentleness. As all things continue to arise and dissolve in this field of belonging, to move through this vast expanse of loving presence. And receiving the gift of a deepening connection to the intrinsic peace that is the truth of our deepest nature, the peace that expresses the spaciousness of being, the peace that expresses the welcoming of all things, the peace that attends with gentleness. As we learn to welcome fear in this way and hold it tenderly and gently here in the body, breathe into it and rest beside it, we become increasingly connected into the wisdom and compassion of our whole body, heart and mind, so that it's from that wisdom and compassion that we're able to respond to whatever it is we're afraid of. It's from this wisdom and compassion that we grow in ever deeper remembrance of who we really are. And our practice today with a poem called Everything You've Been Seeking. When you long for love in your life, meet the unloved parts inside with love. The shrinking feeling of insignificance, finally held in a tender embrace. When you long for freedom in life, freely meet the contractions inside, the knots of anger, fear, and grief, free to come and go in spaciousness. When you long for clarity and light, meet the density here with presence. Even confusion, doubt, and uncertainty can be infused with luminous knowing. Love and wonder aren't only found within lovable and wondrous things, but in the loving and wondering of all that is true and here. Whatever it is that you long for, offer it now to your life, and you will find yourself to be everything that you have been seeking. Thank you, friends, for your presence and your practice. Time for questions, if there are any. You can write a question with the word question in capital letters at the beginning of it in the chat. A reminder as well of Dana that this is the last day today. I think by the end of today, if you offer Dana to Sangha Live, that some of a proportion of that Dana will also come to me. And so much appreciations for your support, for your participation in this very beautiful and long-lived practice of receiving and giving wholeheartedly. If you are wanting to support me but following this after today, the 15th of December, you can find a link to support me with Dana on my website. And I'll put the link in the chat for supporting Sangha Live with Dana. I'll also put a link for keeping in touch with me through my newsletter on Substack. Yes, that poem was also mine, and I will share a link to that in that George will put in the Dharma library. So some questions here. One from Michelle. Thank you, firstly. Where can I find this poem and how can I find out more about your wonderful teachings? Thank you, Michelle. So yeah, the poem was my poem and I will share that, as I just said. You can find out more about my teachings on my website. Just search for Ayala Gill. Luckily there aren't, as far as I know, any other Ayala Gills. I teach either just meditation like this on Sangha Live and London Insight, and I teach yoga and meditation day-long retreats or week-long retreats. There'll be one at the Moulin de Chave next year, and workshops as well. Thank you, Michelle. And doesn't seem at the moment that there are any other questions. So this principle that was shared in the poem that whatever it is we long for. I'll share that last verse. Whatever it is that you long for, offer it now to your life, and you'll find yourself to be everything you've been seeking. This really is at the heart of everything we're practicing this week. And the way that it's so liberating and empowering to discover that everything we search for outside of ourselves arises in our experience right here and now when we meet the very thing that is here with the quality that we're searching for, which really on the whole is always some flavor and face of love. Whether that's the freedom, the courage, the spaciousness, the compassion, the delight, the strength, all of these are flavors and faces of love. Question from Linda. Hello, Linda. What is the relation, as you see it, between fear and control or loss of control? I'm a control freak who wants to be liberated from control. The relationship between fear and control or loss of control. When I was describing the way fear takes us out of the body and into the mind, and the way the mind tries to manage its environment when it feels like it's separate from the world. So remember, fear, when it's existential in this way, comes from the belief, which comes from a felt sense, but then turns into a belief that we're separate. And then the mind, in separation, attempts to manage its environment because it's actually an unfathomable perspective that we are somehow separate from a universe that we then imagine to be cold and dead. And somehow we need to survive separate and alone in this cold, dead universe. And so the mindset of separation, which is a fear mindset, can only survive through attempting to manage its environment. And that's, that's also has its appropriate survival, evolutionary place in our system to control what's around us, or the fear of being out of control. And so there's a very different quality that comes the more we experience directly in the body that we are in connection and that we are in relationship. The Buddha told us, and modern physics tells us, that everything exists in relationship and as a relationship. It's a fundamental truth of reality, but we don't experience that directly quite often, usually. And so the more we inquire into that possibility of being here in relationship with the earth, being here in relationship with our breath, being here in relationship with our emotions, being here in relationship with our mind state, being here in relationship with each other, with nature, with all things, the more that, rather than feeling as if we need to control everything or we're terrified of being out of control of everything, we realize that everything is a flow of reciprocity, that we can receive things and we can give back, that we learn through this deepening gentleness of belonging that there's a different kind of trust that arises, a trust that perhaps life itself does hold us, a trust that perhaps even when things happen that we find challenging or difficult, that this too can be met with the tenderness of presence, with love. And that, as Ram Dass said, as I shared the other day, that whenever we meet what we but thought we couldn't bear, whatever couldn't bear it relaxes. And so there's a deepening capacity to meet this contraction of control with love. And again, that goes back to the essence of our practice that I was speaking of before. When we meet the very contraction of needing to control with love, we inquire into it. How does this show up in our body? Or meet the fear of being out of control with love. How does this show up in our body? How does fear of control or loss of control feel in the body? And when it's met here in the body, we are once again the parent who embraces the child. So let me know how that goes. And also just being very gentle and kind with whenever we notice this need to be in control coming up. It's like not pushing that away, but holding it gently, smiling to it, like we would that anxious child that needs to control his or her environment. And wondering behind that need of control, what's there? What's really there behind this need to control that's wanting to feel safe? And how else can that sense of safety be offered? A question from Françoise. Thank you for bringing the subject to fear. Can you say a little more about the fact that just mentioning fear can bring some strong feeling of fear? Yeah. Well, as I said, when we even speak about maybe fear in particular, but I think any emotion that has tend to be suppressed or is quite backgrounded in us, it brings it forward. For some people that might be anger more, for some people that might be grief. But yeah, just speaking of fear will bring it forward when it's here to be felt in the body. It's really as simple as that. We have all probably become familiar with either suppressing or embellishing all of these emotions that we've been exploring, which means fear will be locked somewhere in your system. will be stored somewhere in your system. So just turning towards it, speaking about fear, starts to bring it forward. You know, as I've shared these meditations each day in reflecting on each emotion, in speaking about each emotion, I have literally felt it in my body. And so I can feel fear right now in my body as physical sensations, having reflected on it. But over time, we learn to meet that just with so much spaciousness. What's important is that when fear comes up in the body, because of its nature, we tend to go very quickly and strongly into the mind and into the stories of what there is to be afraid of, or why I'm afraid of, what I need to do. So that's the practice, which is the same practice always, to unhook from these stories, to come back into the body, to meet fear itself as a physical presence so that it can start to free itself from our tissues. And again, shaking and support are both really important, especially if there's, you know, trauma in the body around fear. So there are a few more questions, but we've also, time is up. I'll just mention Rivka's question. While the body is fully relaxed, streaming of fearful thoughts goes on and on. Any suggestion? So I hope what I just said helps that a little bit, that's our practice. And so if we turn towards fear and we find that we just get triggered into trauma response, which means like really strongly brought into the mind, come to the breath, come to mindfulness of breathing, really being present with your breathing, really tender and anchoring your attention back into the body, back into the breathing. We have to meet our emotions in the body. So that is our primary practice. It might be that we just touch into one of any of these emotions when they're strong within us. And then if there's a trigger that takes us out of the body, the rest of the time we come and we breathe and we relax and we come back and we come back and we come back into the body. So if there are other questions that you have, you are very welcome to email me. You can find my my email on my website, which I will just write in the chat. And you are so welcome and invited and encouraged to join my newsletter on Substack to keep in touch in any way that you feel moved to and able to. It's been a real pleasure being with you this week. So thank you again for your love, for your presence, for your support in Dharna and in being here. And I hope to see you next time. I'm on Sangha Live again in March next year. I think the end of March. I'll put the dates on my website soon. And we'll be teaching, the next thing I think I'm sharing is a day-long retreat just outside of London. Those of you who also enjoy yoga as well as meditation, as well as being in nature, there's an outdoor lake to swim in and a Swedish sauna. So we'll be bringing all of that nature immersion and meditation and yoga into our practice for a day. Sending you lots of love and lots of gratitude.